right. Well, welcome to another episode of our Create the Ripple podcast. I am your host, Candace Smiley, and here we talk about trusting the niggle and telling the truth. I'm super stoked for my next guest. We got on for the pre-chat. I really need to start recording these pre-chats, but we started on the pre-chat and it was just like, we were like, hello, soul sister. And so I'm super excited for her to share who she is, what she's about, and then we will dive straight back into conversation. So without any further ado, let's meet you.
Hello, nice to meet you. So my name is Sheetal Story. I'm a psychic medium, an astrologer, and a passion and purpose coach. Is the way I kind of call myself, I guess.
I love that. Passion, purpose, coach. My favorite is the purpose because I think for a lot of years I didn't know what my purpose was because I had really tied my purpose to what I do. And so I felt like I had to know, what university I need to go to and what that was. And, I've always been sort of driven with an ambition to do more, be more, but really it's taken me until 2020 to figure out what my, passion and my purpose really is. So tell me more about what you do to help people get there, because you started rattling off all the wonderful things you do, and I thought, oh, we run in the same circles.
The woo circles.
He's like, you're definitely from Edmonton because those are the people that call it the. I'm like, I know it's my woo woo, right? Like,
Yeah. I actually have a subscription box that I run called the Woo Box because it was just like downloaded into my head. And it's like, you should call it Woo Box because let's claim that, right? Even all the names that you're called to, it's really interesting how you have to, for me, I've had to claim them as mine. So even when I was working with my branding specialist and my website and stuff, she's like, well, what do you want to call yourself? I'm like, I guess I'm a psychic medium, but I don't like that word. That has that whole connotation of like, madam, the lady that you call 1-800 number. And she's like, well, if someone's trying to find you, what would they Google? And I'm like, a psychic medium. So she said, maybe you should just make peace with that word. Like, ugh. Yeah, okay, you're right. You have to just make peace with it. And it's the same with the Woo Woo Box. I was like, this is why we're going to name it the Woo Woo Box. And it's a subscription for the spiritually curious woman. So it's got crystal grids and it's got a sacred ceremony in it. And so that is, just claiming that word for what it is. Everything that is science was once woo, back in the day. So I think, I love claiming that word for what it is.
That's amazing. Okay, first nugget drop, not bad, girlfriend. We're like minutes into this thing and I'm just like, boom.
Claim the woo, do it. This is your, and even
Claiming
for like,
woo.
Right? What is the term that you are most struggling with that you could just claim that as yours and redefine it for what you want it to be? We're in that world now. But I love you were saying about your path and how, I teach this in my coaching classes too, is that every step leads you to the next step. Right. So even I graduated with a business degree from U of A. And so back then I actually wanted to be a lawyer, back in the day, and everything led me to the next step, to let me to here. And so there's no wrong path to take, every path will lead you to where you need to go. But so I would say I was born with the ability to see aura. And as a kid, I would see this, kind of energy. I'm Hindu by religion. And so we have a lot of, faith around spirituality, and the spirit is everlasting and reincarnation. So, it wasn't really a weird thing. My mom was like, all right, so you see spirit? Well, great, but I had terrible nightmares every night. My mom was
So did I. Yeah.
My mom is a horror film junkie. So she took me to see the Poltergeist when I was 5. And I was like terrified, of course, right? We had to leave the theater because I couldn't stop screaming. And my mom's like, I had no idea. I was like, really? You have no idea that I would be terrified by this film? She really didn't. She just thought, oh, you'd see that it's not real. And yeah, that was not true. And I think that colored my nightmares at night. And as I grew older and I kind of pushed it away, I came back into my gifts after my daughter was born. And that's about 11 years ago. She's 11 now. And I realized actually throughout my journey that a lot of my dreams were actually my spirit guides coming to visit, but it was triggering a lot of my own fears based on the horror films. So I realized, so much of what Hollywood portrays is just like bullshit. And it creates this fear around, so much of what we do that I almost kind of spend most of the time debunking these myths. And when you start to think about it rationally, you're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. Like possession, right? There's no way another spirit could fit into this body. Like my spirit is so big, it actually permeates from my body. How could something else fit in here? And we start to ask those questions, people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, there's no such thing as possession. No. Can you be influenced? That's another situation. So it's interesting when we start to get into the energy and the science of it. What does this all mean? And what does this make sense for the common person that's going through these experiences?
Wow. So my favorite part about these things is, my VA, bless her heart, shout out to her. She sets these up beautifully. And I really like just showing up so that when I'm speaking to you, just like my listeners are sort of meeting you for the first time, so am I. So I don't have time to script it or think about it. And, spirit can really lead through the questions, which is important for me, because I really feel like this platform is a gift. I do. And, the fact that I get to connect is like a gift, and that it's fun for me. The camera goes on and I'm like, you know, so I love that. I love how you just talked about something that I haven't even thought about for a very long time. Now, I also have gifts. I don't talk about them as much, but I know that they're there, and I know that they've had a huge impact on my business dealings, on who I approach. People often say, "Well, how do you know who to talk to, or how come you get these brilliant connections?" And I think, well, because I know, right? I see, I hear, precognition, some of this kind of stuff kicks in, and so I feel like, well, I got this gift, but I'm not going to talk about it because, I'm not quite ready to showcase that to the world. Apparently, we're having this conversation today. Trust me, they go telling the truth. But just like you, I had nightmares when I was a child, and it took a number of amazing, grounded professionals, both with NLP backgrounds and some of these things, very intuitive women, um, psychologists, psychiatrists, who really supported me, because a lot of the depression that I struggled with when I was younger was because I was ignoring the gift, because I wasn't speaking my truth, and I wasn't, I was hiding from those things. And a lot of the, you know, demonic things that would visit me at night were guides or people that were, taking care of me. And once I befriended that part of myself and said, these are things I know. These are, guys that show up for me. It was amazing how they just like stopped. And people like, what happened? I'm like, I found an acceptance with a gift that I wasn't ready to talk about. So really powerful for me that you started in this place. So thank you for sharing that powerfully.
I love it. I think half the time when we're talking about spirits that come visit, or even when we do house clearings, I don't do a lot of them, but every now and again, and it's like I would say 9 times out of 10, it's a loved one from spirit just saying, "Hey, I'm here. I haven't fully gone. Like I am gone. I'm not at peace on the other side, but I just came back to let you know that I'm still watching over you. I still love you. I still protect you." So it's very interesting. I think a lot of the times from beginner mediums, I do have a beginner mediumship group. I do teach a lot of intuitives as well. And I think the one thing that I notice a lot is when we deny our gifts, we're pushing away a piece of ourselves and denying that major soul part of us. That's a soul quality that you carry. We all are intuitive by birthright.
Yes.
But there's some of us that have it to different degrees than others and are using it in different ways. So even if you think about a psychologist, or empaths, anyone who's sensitive, they have this natural ability to just put their awareness on you and feel how you feel. And when you do that without boundaries, when you do that without knowing, it's like you're riding this crazy bucking bronco and you have no idea how to tame this beast, right? And so when you start to learn about boundaries, when you start to learn about cord cutting, when you start to learn about energetic self-care, you realize that this is a gift and not a burden to carry. So I think, you've just spoken to the plight of the sensitive, where, you're sort of being impacted by all these energies around you. And, who knows what was happening in your childhood. I have heard your podcast and you've said you've gone through some massive things in your childhood. So that also, as an intuitive and a sensitive, you're just pulling that in like a little sponge, and how much of that was coming out in your dreams trying to be processed, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that, I've met healers, and, we've talked about the fact that, I've done Reiki and learned that myself, largely to, take care of myself. It's been whispered to me that, the spiritual gifts, not necessarily to be used this life in terms of, as a healer, though I do, right? It's hard not to. But more so that the knowledge that I'm a bridge, which isn't unfamiliar, or, in terms of whether it's the podcast or the magazine, I'm often a bridge, right? It's just sort of something I see. I'm like, oh, you're not quite awake yet, and you're very awake. Let me translate between the two. And I love that. So, really just coming to a place of peace about, what your role, your purpose, and your passion is. And, passion often, I mean, the meaning of the word, right, is suffering, which I think people often, I love words, right? I think words are so powerful, right? The world was created with sound, everything vibrates. So that's the way it is. And so the words we use, especially to speak about ourselves, right? I am, etc., have such an impact. And when I really started to pay attention to those words and what I was putting out there, night and day difference, in my world, right? To say that, I'm an intuitive and sort of these things, it was just like, wow, I'm actually owning that. And then people are like, so very cool. So tell me more. You do so many different things. How do you like package that so there's a continuity there? I'd love to know that because it feels very congruent as I'm speaking to you. Just share that with us, please.
So I think as I started kind of developing, it was very clear to me that I was meant to be a medium. So as I started to go to classes, all the right teachers just started to present, and you know what it is like, right? But just like the path opens, you're like, oh, this is my calling. And so as the right teachers started to present themselves, I met an amazing psychic medium who was helping, she was, long story short, doing it forever. And so, took me under her wing, and I was so grateful. Learned a lot of the philosophies and mechanics of mediumship. Like there is actually a way to do mediumship in a way that really honors the passing of the soul and evidence and all that. So that was really important to me. And then I met this kick-ass astrologer that was like world renowned and lived in Edmonton. And I was trying to figure out if this was all like leading somewhere. When would I be able to leave my job? And a friend of mine said, there's this awesome astrologer that lives here in Edmonton. And I said, okay, well, let's give her a shot. And I looked her up, and she had like taught classes in China. She was the proctor of these exams that actually certified astrologers around the world. And she lived in Edmonton. And I was like, what is the magic of this place?
Yeah.
Right? Like who lives in Edmonton? Apparently a lot of people. So
there were people like, really? Edmonton? I'm like, I know.
It's wild how many, especially we're a hotbed of psychics and mediums and astrologers, and man, people that are very spiritually woke live in Edmonton. So, and I'm a big into community too. So I just bring everybody. There's no competition. There's so many people that need support, right? So, anyways, met this amazing astrologer, and I was like, she's magic. I need to learn from her. 6 years later, I got certified, and it just started to build on itself. And so, how it comes. Usually people come to me for different sessions or readings. And then my jam is really teaching people how to use their intuitive gifts so now that they don't need a medium, they don't need a psychic, you have all the gifts within you, but sometimes you just need that impartial, person to just sort of say, here's what the cards are saying, and why aren't you following your passion? And I give you permission. I don't know you. And so I can give you this really, third party view of your life and just sort of say, if this is coming out here, then I'm going to say you need to follow this. And that's all sometimes it takes. So I've combined them all now into actually coaching. I can look up your life path in your astrology, like what it is that you'll make money from, what is your career focus, where your gifts and talents are in your life, and also what are your life obstacles? What are things that you're going to constantly come up against and learn through? It's almost like layers of an onion where you peel away one, you're like, I got this. And now you're like, oh, there's that coming up again. Okay, I need to deal with that. So astrology shows us your cosmic blueprint, so to speak. And then we can use it with your own sort of, what is it that you desire from your life? What is it? Where is life not serving you? And then we can use the law of attraction. We can use the cards. We can use my intuition. I also am a grief support counselor by background as well. I have my counseling certification. So I really help people overcome their own barriers that are sort of innate in their chart, and then come into the life of their dreams. And so it all comes through the lens of your intuition, though. If you don't know who you are, you can't sit in your own soul, then we have a problem. And so that's why Intuition 101 is like my jam. I love teaching intuition, because once you teach someone how to use their intuition, that's it. Like they're off and running.
What a magical thing you get to do for a career.
So much. I know. What is this life, right? Like, what is the magic of this life that I get to do this and help people and make a career out of it?
Right? I know. This is my job.
This is my job too.
What?
Yeah.
I loved it when you were talking about, really helping people sort of like those things that they keep running into. I have a very good friend who's a numerologist, and she's done my numbers, and she says, you have like one life lesson. I said, I know. I could have told you that, because I keep writing the same thing over and over again. One of the books I'm going to write is called Detours, because I kid you not, I'm on a path and then I get distracted. I think sometimes it was a lesson to be learned, so it's totally okay. But I literally end up like right back in the same place where I'm like, okay, it's not just deja vu. I have definitely been here before, right? Like I've moved back into like the same street, 2 or 3 houses down, sometimes back into the same spot. And I'm like, that was a detour. Did we learn anything? Yeah, I think we did. I think we did. So I love that you brought that up, right? Because people are like, well, you have 4 lessons and you have this. And I'm like, I got one. Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee, but I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen. Real simple.
That's why I love astrology, because it's cycles, right? Like, and it's almost like a record player. Every time the sun goes through that part of your chart, you will play that lesson again. And whether you've learned it or not, but it's like a spiral upwards, right? So you you figured out, you never really come back to the same spot because you learned so much on that last cycle. You're kind of one step higher. So
it really brought a lot of things into perspective for me, because I really always respected the cyclical nature of life, even before I had really embraced my woo. And then certainly there's more I embraced it, that I was like, no, that makes sense. People come, people go, circumstances come, circumstances go, which I think has been more challenging for other people. And 2020 really allowed me time, space, energy to grieve some things that needed to be grieved, to really sort of wrap up some stuff, right? It was time to end some of those cycles and sort of shimmy up. And I say to people, I feel like I moved the needle in my life. And they're like, what happened? I'm like, I stopped running from thing to thing and working part-time on my healing. I'd spent 14 weeks. I saw a healer on Monday, saw a healer on Thursdays, and then as many of the other healers that could sneak me in, I was like, seriously, my life is falling apart. And I was like, I need you. When can I see you? And it was probably one of the most amazing, inspiring times. The most magical thing for me is as things were falling away, I also made more money. And I was like, so clearly I need to not be in control here. And it's been such a welcoming to usher in a shift into my feminine. And then recently, sort of a gentle reminder that I could lean, being an entrepreneur and a woman, lean heavily into my masculine energy. Totally fine. Now I'm learning how to marry the two. And it's interesting how those two things are even showing up, and you'd understand this, right? Even in my business, in the friends that I'm attracting, with our publication, it was an all-woman team for a very long time. And then there was a gentle shift in direction, a gentle, a download, as you would say, of what's next, where are we going, how does this fit? And the people who've come in now to do the doing, very masculine part of it, there's a creation and then there's a doing. They're two guys who are stay-at-home dads who also have big passions and support. Like for them, they're like, oh, we married women who are like, they are powerhouses. They love it. They've got moms who were amazing. Like they have so much respect for women, but they're still men. And I said, this is not surprising to me that you would show up because it's time to start bringing those two things together. So again, just like with you sharing, like, how does this happen? Well, you have to be living it. And then even when you're living it, you're like, that's so fun, right?
I love that you talked about that divine feminine, divine masculine side, because it's always a balancing act, right? So
yeah,
I love it.
And we have both,
I think,
right? So.
yes. And I think you're right. I think for so long we have been told to fall asleep on the divine feminine side or dummy that down. I come from a corporate background as well. I have a business degree and I've worked in corporate, US companies and big firms and smaller firms. And there's always this, don't be emotional in the boardroom, don't show, passion or crying.
Mm-hmm.
And really just do the work and push everything down. My husband and I have this laugh, push it all down so that nothing can come up again. Don't feel anything, just do your work and shut up. Yeah. And we both come from a corporate background, and it's like, that's where the trauma is, right?
That's where the trauma is. Yeah.
You're in therapy because all those, I call them the skeletons, rise to the surface for you to see. And so the divine feminine is your intuition. It comes through your emotion, excuse me. And the emotion is the language of the soul. So when you are in alignment, your emotions are in joy, are happiness, you're feeling lit up by your life, you're feeling passion and harmony. And when you're not in alignment, that's when the depression, the anxiety, the sadness, the anger, the guilt, the shame, that all comes in. And so we can use that emotion to really find out whether you're in alignment or not with your soul purpose. And then where are you now kind of going away from that with this guilt, shame, blame stuff. And then on the divine masculine, the doing, the action, the protective, the two in harmony are intuitive, intuition in divine action. And the two come into harmony that way. So every time you act on your intuition, starting this podcast, starting the magazine, everything that you've done in your life has led you down the right path. And I think my job is to convince people to just trust themselves to do that. And, what a better way to build your own book of evidence that this is working. And when you trust yourself, things work out. And when you don't trust yourself, bad things happen. And you get to try again. That's the human story.
And you'll tell the truth. I get it. And I mean, we talked about that, or you listened to one of my first podcasts where I'm like, if I didn't listen to myself, and when I didn't, I actually just did a video about the story I don't talk about, which literally was me saying, I didn't listen to a niggle, and it's caused, pain for a number of years for myself and other people. And I think I'm not the only one, right? Because we rationalize that, or, the narrative of the world it's challenging to listen to that voice. And when do we learn it? right? If you're blessed enough to be raised in a home where listening to the voices, or trusting your intuition or your inner knowing, whatever you want to call it, is encouraged, great, but not every home is like that, right? And I grew up in the Christian tradition, and I love it for the faith it gave me and the grounding. However, I was taught to look outside of myself, right, for direction, for purpose, for passion, for all of those things. And a big shift certainly really happened when I said, I can trust myself. If there is this desire in my heart, it had to be put there, and maybe following it is going to give me more peace. And wouldn't you know, that was the start, right? To just listen to, I want to do this. And maybe the wanting is the thing. And, that was a few years ago. So, started on that journey. So for the person who's listening and saying, okay, girls, that's all fine and dandy. You guys have like tuned in, tapped in, turned on. How do I get there? Because I feel overworked, underpaid. There's always somebody or something screaming for my attention, and it's hard enough for me to shave my legs at the end of the day. How the heck do I reconnect to my intuition, or just start, so I can start to see some of these miracles in my life? What would you say to that person?
Well, I think the gateway to hearing yourself is meditation. It is the gateway to listening to yourself, because that ego is so loud. And I'm a firm believer that we need our ego. That's part of our divine masculine that keeps us safe, that is trying to protect us. So the ego is not bad. I remember when I was coming up through the mediumship ranks and learning my craft, one of the things someone used to say is ego is edging God out. And I just cringed when I heard that. That did not resonate with me. And I'm like, it's not. It is also our voice of ourselves trying to keep us safe. So when we're in so much of the doing, call it the matrix, if you will, where you're just in the story, I'm doing the thing, I don't even have time to take care of myself, shave my legs. You are in the depths of your ego. And how can we start to listen to our intuition? How can we start to be in just the quiet of our soul and get to know ourselves of who we divinely are? And I think, religion used to help us with that, but it's become so watered down, I think, with,
So much dogma.
right, dogma. And I think the man has put so much of their spin on it that we've almost lost the spirituality a lot in a lot of these religions. And so I think coming back into spirituality, if you can just sit in this, not even the silence, because that's not achievable. I think just listening to a meditation that just lets you quiet down. So a really great practice that I would sort of say to my beginners is if you work out in the morning or you do something for yourself, the greatest way ever to start your day is just maybe 10 minutes that you can give yourself to set an intention for the day, and just put on a guided meditation, or even just put on a song where you can just sit there in silence and listen to this song and just let it flow through you, and then journal on what came up and set an intention. I love cards, oracle cards, affirmation cards. Just pull an intention card for the day and see where your day goes, because intention is everything. It literally directs the energy of the universe with an intention. So you set your intention for the day, you pull a card, you journal on that, and you start your day off that way. And what a magical way to really kind of start the day with your spirit, first, versus the matrix first. And the more you can just listen to yourself, you'll just find that those little, and I think it's like a workout routine, that it just falls off and you get back on it, and you fall off that horse and you get back on it. But you realize how good you feel when you do that. And I think that's that book of evidence that I talked about, that if you can find out these practices that work for you, that feel good. Maybe not everybody can do 10 minutes in the morning, or maybe, you do a workout and just 5 minutes, you sit with a guided meditation and you just listen to just quiet down the mind. It's a really great skill to cultivate in moments of stress, that you can just, a really easy one to do is 3 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And that oxygenates your brain. It gives you a moment to think, and you just slow down in that moment. So there's all these little tools and little kind of tips and tricks that, teach in Intuition 101 and to my students and clients too. They can just calm down that ego and just sit in their soul. They hear so much more than just the busyness of the day. Does that make sense?
I love that you brought this up, because I just did a podcast with Zachary Clausen, and he was talking about meditation, and that, shared with us, his favorite app, and just 10 minutes, just basically the same thing that you just said. So I'm going to have to link that, somewhere here back and
Yeah.
forth between the two podcasts. But just it's so cool. And I think that's one of the neatest things for me about living this life, of purpose, living this life by your intuition, is it never fails. Like there's no theme. I didn't wake up today and think, I'm going to talk about meditation today. That wasn't a theme necessarily. However, I was listening to an audiobook, was choosing to make apple crisp, and realizing that I was really enjoying making apple crisp, and it was meditation. And so I was breathing and just being really present. And then she had talked about that and really just being present in the moment. I stopped, and then I've done these two podcasts where the same thing has come up, and I think, okay, I got it. Third time is charm. And so I want to share that with my listeners, because you and I recognize when these things show up because we're looking for them, right? We're recognizing the signs of a purpose-filled life. We're recognizing what it means, when spirit is speaking, and because we look for it. So it's not just coincidence, and we're paying attention. And then, that's a cool thing too. It makes me feel like I'm taken care of, right? Because I really like to feel like I'm in control. And I know this is an illusion. I do. So when I feel like, oh, someone's got it, good. Then I feel that to the illusion, right? And I think for a lot of people, there's it's a bit of fear. At least there was for me when I decided to start sort of living more from intuition. It can feel a little quiet sometimes, and you can feel disconnected, especially if you're just learning, right, to meditate. Monkey mind is a big deal, right? It isn't easy. It doesn't happen overnight. And so, but just like learning to eat well or walk or ride a bike, these are habits. And once you learn the muscle memory, it becomes easier. And I think I like to remind people of that, so they're not set up for success, or they're set up for success rather than, set up for that failure piece of thinking it's going to be a walk in the park.
I love that you said that, because it's actually one of the three disclaimers I sort of say is that if you think meditation, gratitude journaling, and crystals are going to solve all your problems, you're very wrong. Like you've really drank some weird Kool-Aid that is
Yeah.
not. And I think I'm finding a lot of my clients are like, I've been doing all of this and nothing is changing in my life. And so because you're not actually going into the deeper wounds that are kind of keeping you stuck.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. Like that's why I teach a hypnosis class for diving deeper into the intuition, because it's not, and that's why I wanted to become a therapeutic hypnotherapist, because I really think that, meditation, trying to calm that monkey mind, you're right. We have been conditioned to think and go and go. And now with social media, like every moment of your day is taken up with something. How do you now quiet that? Right? You've been taught this for so long. And I think about it like young kids now. I have two young kids, and they're growing up in an electronics era.
Yeah.
So now teaching them the other way, I've had a few clients who are like, I cannot meditate no matter how much I try. So, let's try hypnotherapy and see if that works. And they're like, I've never been in this moment where I could actually just stop the thoughts. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm doing it for you. You just have to listen to my voice. And there's an actual induction and method to hypnotherapy. So I started a hypnotherapy class just for people who had a hard time meditating. And it's amazing. Like that's the gateway right there. And then when they've been able to kind of calm their mind, then they can come into trying meditation now that they know what that feels like. So there's lots of ways, right? There's not just one way, one path to, listening to yourself and listening to your intuition. There's many paths to get us there. We're human. Mm-hmm. We are living this journey, right? And it's okay. You get to try again. Every time you try and it doesn't work out, you get to try again. And it's exciting.
I think that's so important because, I'm an entrepreneur. And so, when I do things like, sales, and I do online things, and, the number of people are like, well, I tried this and it didn't work. And I think, yeah, but every day you reset and you rebrand and you refigure it out and you learn some new things, better, you do better. And I'm just often surprised at how quickly people give up, right? They just, on themselves first and foremost, right? That there's just this lack of a self-belief. And I think when you know your intuition, I don't know about you, but it's like every day I wake up and I know what the purpose is. I'm just sort of moving toward the purpose, even when I'm like not sure what the purpose is today, but we're moving toward it. And I couldn't imagine not being attached to that, to be honest, right? It's just,
Mhm.
what would that be like? So,
I think, you know, when you start to come into this, that you are a magical freaking being. I didn't want to swear because I don't know if you have
okay.
Vicky on your
It's
podcast.
happened before. So you'll be all good.
You are a magical being. You are made of stardust. Live in a world of energy, and you have the ability to perceive the energy and the physical world. You are
Yeah.
walking in both worlds. Like, you have so much power just at your intentional fingertips, and yet we forget. Like, the world just forgets. And so the only difference between like you and I, knowing that we're divine, magical, freaking unicorns, and somebody else thinking, oh, that's not me, is just a belief. It's just a belief. You can flip that belief in a moment by just saying, no, I decide that's me too. Right? Who you decide you are, the I am statements, really is your identity. And you got to be so careful with what you say. I often hear my clients say, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I did that. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. That sounds like an identity. Let's reframe that. What do you want to claim instead? So my clients all know, as soon as I go, whoa, 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 they're like, I claim something different. Do it. What are you claiming right now?
Yeah.
Because that's all it is. It's, you just claim something different, and that is who you can be. Like, it's that simple. It's just all the belief behind it. It's like all this evidence that you feel that you've accumulated over the years that you feel like it's not. So.
Hey, it's Candace. I hope you're really enjoying the show. I know I certainly am. I want to give a big shout out to one of the products that I absolutely love using. So this is 36-year-old skin, and I am in love with it. Yes, I am wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation. I'm wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, but in general, I want to go like really, really close. This is my skin. Phenomenal, right? So I recently started using a product called Biocell. Biocell is liquid collagen. Now, there's a lot of buzz about collagen right now, but you want to find one that mirrors closest the human kind of collagen. I was super impressed with this particular collagen. This is made with only the sternums of chickens. So that's the, the sternum bone of chickens in a place that has already ethically and humanely taken care of these chickens. And so we're basically using a part of the chicken that would normally just disappear and be used for other things. I have not got into the collagen world before now, mostly because I know that a lot of the collagens out there, especially the powdered collagen, they have things like cow hooves and pig hooves and noses, and I just wasn't interested in putting that sort of thing in my body. I do try to live a more plant-based lifestyle. This is one of the few products that I allow to have animal in it, but I absolutely love it. I'm also really impressed with the company behind it. They're a values-driven company, and if you know from watching any of my shows, values matter to me. They've got a number of values. One, to be disruptive in the industry, and you know me, I like to be a little bit irreverent and go against the grain once in a while. I also really love that one of their values is humility and compassion, because those are huge and important to me. So if you're looking for a place to spend your money, and no, it's not an arm and a leg, no, it's not an MLM, this is affiliate marketing, which means if you did decide to purchase this product, yes, I would in fact get a small commission, which has nothing to do with your products or your purchase or the price point on the product, to be honest with you. It is simply 10 to 36% for me, depending on how many of this awesome product that I get a chance to move. Also, I'm paid daily, which I think is pretty amazing. So if you're somebody who's looking for some collagen and you just want to be our customer, I have got a $10 code. Drop a link or a comment below, or feel free to message me and I will share with you my link so that you can get $10 off of your first order. If you are somebody who's thinking, hey, I would like to get some product and also like to break into the affiliate game, that's a passion for me. I love teaching women and men, but mostly women, how to master the affiliate game. Once you learn how to do it with one company, you can do it with anything else. So I hope that you're enjoying the show, and without any further ado, back to the show.
So I love that you talk about that, because I know that when I was really embracing this and letting go of some of those, formal beliefs that I had, and sort of refiguring that out, one of the things I was, taught that, we need to look for that feeling of relief, right? Abraham and Esther Hicks. And that was good because I needed a sensation to align to. And I share this with a lot of people when they're saying, well, how do I start? Like, look for the feeling of relief. You'll know it. It doesn't feel like sunshine, lollipops, and roses, but it'll feel a little better. Maybe just a tiny bit better. Follow that. It's like a little thread, and the thread will turn into a rope, and the rope will turn into the river. You're good, but you gotta follow that. And I think that really helped. And one of the things I used to do is help people tell a different story. So not unlike you, sort of with that reframe, cancel, cancel, delete, delete, and start to tell a story. And sometimes people are like, but that's hard because I don't believe in myself. And I go, yet.
Yep.
The relief I'm trying to get you to get to. And then, like, okay, so if I believed in myself and if I knew I could do anything and I was a freaking unicorn, and then they're like, well, then I would do this. I'm like, okay, now did you feel that? That's relief. Okay, just do that and it will become easier. And yes, you'll feel like a crazy person, but that's half the fun of being a freaking unicorn.
Well, that's a law of attraction process, actually, of what if, right? So you just kind of get people into that wonder and that curiosity versus this is finality. This is my life. This is my life, I guess. And I'm like, what if, everything worked out? What if you could make the money doing what you love? And I'm like, what if? Tell me about that.
I got goosebumps with that one. What if? That's my new favorite one.
Because that's like you're dreaming now, and that's where your intuition, and that's why I think people have a hard time believing their intuition, because it's in their imagination. And the more, that's why children have no problem when we do intuition exercises. Children get it right every single time because they don't care if they're wrong. They're in their imagination. And so the more we can get people out of that matrix mind and into like, what are the possibilities? Because if you can envision the possibilities, you can make that happen.
Yes. Yes. My daughter often says to me, she's 5, almost 6, and she says, well, Mommy, we'll talk about these things, but you're going to forget them in the morning, because adults always forget their dreams in the morning. And every time she says it, I'm like, oh, kiddo, you're too right. And that's so true, right? How much bigger, can I dream? And sometimes when she's, walking down the street, singing and humming to herself and skipping, I'm like, she's not seeing a tree that's, gray and brown. It's got to be pink and purple and rainbows. Like, and for just a minute, I'm like, I wonder what it would be like to see the world the way she does. And no wonder she's so freaking happy all the time. And I think too, kids are okay to ask for what they want. And I was thinking about this when you were sharing some of those pieces. As adults, we don't ask for what we want. We don't ask for it from ourselves. We don't ask for it from our spouses. We certainly don't ask for it from the universe, the powers that be. And I think that's a big piece of it, because I mean, it's sort of the energy that comes back is, well, who do you think you are? And I'm like, freaking unicorn, I'm gonna ask for sunshine lollipops today, right? Like, and then if I go to the dollar store and someone gives me a lollipop, I'll be like, thank you very much, right? Like, I'll be more specific next time. But I think that, again, that's sort of what we're trying to get, the listeners to, if you guys are picking up on this yet, is it's really fun over here, and it's worth the work to learn some of these things so that you can live in here and have that what if life. What if you could make money doing the thing you love the most?
And I love, I feel like this is circling back to what you sort of said about control and professionalism and perfectionism. That's the word I'm looking for, because perfectionism and control often will get us to a level of, to professional level in our career. And it gets to a point, I think, as we get older too, where it no longer serves us. That perfectionist controlling mind is actually becomes this overlord that is trying to keep us in this position of known. And you have to release that control and that perfectionist tendency. Yeah. And I know I'm a Virgo. I love perfection. I love control. And every day, it's funny, in mediumship, we really have to surrender to listening to what the spirit wants to say in their story and how they want to say it. And there's a part of me that really had to let go of that. But what do you want to do? Like, what, and how old were you? And how did you die? And they're like, no, you're taking control, Sheetal. And I was like, oh, there it is again, that control. So that's why I think there's this level of fear too, because we've been told that we got to control everything or else we're now out of control. And the fact of it is, you are always out of control. Yeah, just the more that you can surrender to that. And how much easier can it be if you just surrender and flow with it versus trying to paddle upstream every time you're like, no, but this is not fun. It can be fun.
Yeah. Running the rapids can be fun too, right? That just may not be my first choice.
That's right.
Anyway, I want to give you the space and time to share anything that might be on your heart with our listeners as we sort of begin to wrap up here today. I feel like you and I could talk for a really long time, and it would just be like blink, and they would be like, "What?" But I know that you've got some incredible soul gifts that you are actively sharing with the world, and thank you for that. So, anything you want to share or leave with our listeners, I would love that.
Oh, thank you for the space to share that. I just am such a champion of the intuition, like that. Once you know your intuition and you can really trust yourself, the world just opens up to you in such magical ways. So I would love, the listeners to look out for ways that they could trust themselves in that. I do teach an intuition 101 class. That's a 4-week class. Intake is full for April, but the next one's coming up in October. I teach it once per quarter. So I would love to invite them if they were so interested to follow me on social media and get in on that class. It is so much fun. I give homework each week, and it's not the homework that's like write a thesis on the spore cycle of a mushroom. Like this is really about go and ask for assistance from your guides this week. Look for signs and symbols from spirit as they come across your path. Nothing is by coincidence. And the more that we can start to see how supported you are and you're not alone, the more you start to really make magical things happen. And by the 4th week is my favorite class to teach, although I say that for every class, I think.
That like it's a good podcast. I'm so stoked. I'm just always excited to talk.
I know, I love this episode. But yeah, it's by the transformation from the first week. It's funny because they're always like, I don't know if this is real. And then the last week they're like, I just saw a blue jay and I swear it talked to me. And it's like, yes. So it's wild, the transformation over the 4 weeks of how much they start to trust themselves. And then I have a 201 class that many of them come into that we do much more fun things now that you trust yourself, we can get into. So yeah, it's I would just say if I could leave the listener with one thing, it's just to learn to trust yourself and trust your intuition. And however that I'm not the only one teaching that. So, it doesn't have to be me, but just learn to do that, have your own spiritual practice, because that piece is so important to the life you came here to live. You're not just a person that's paying taxes, making money, and retiring at the end of your life. Like, you are here to make a difference in this world. Trust that niggle in your heart, trust that desire that was put there, and really do something with it that's going to elevate and change this world in some way.
Wow, that's amazing. Yes, all of that. Yes, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and holding space with me today. I definitely want to have you back on the show. I would love to dive more into this law of attraction. And I think there's so much here. And I'm just thinking, as we're talking, and it usually happens when I'm doing a podcast, I'm thinking, oh, someone I could share this with, and this would be a different perspective or different language to help someone understand. Because it's about that community and collaboration and some of those really neat things that we're looking to do. Um, Working on some ideas for a summit for the magazine. So I would love to have you involved because we really want people to come away from any interaction feeling lifted, right? Feeling inspired and empowered too, right? I know it's a word that's well used today, but I think about what you were sharing about once they know how to trust their intuition, they don't need the medium. They can trust themselves. That's a huge gift. And I want to support you in offering that to more and more people because what a gift that is. So thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here and getting to meet you. I love that you just trusted the nickel and got me on your show. And I was like, I can't wait to meet her.
You realize if you don't trust the niggle, it just gets louder. So I've learned it's just easier to go along with the ride and,
It's flow. That's what flow feels like. Less energy, so much more fun. And you're just having the best ride of your life.
Yes.
So thank you for inviting me here. And I can't wait to do this again with you. This was so much fun.
I know. And I know my listeners love the repeats because usually we start on something and then we get to build. And I'm all about relationships and forming great relationships and these collaborations, as I mentioned. Because there's so many amazing people doing so many amazing things right now. The world really is waking up. And this makes me happy. And I'm excited to be a part of that awakening. So for my listeners, you know the drill. Please go like, love, share, comment, subscribe. It really does make a difference. If you listened and you got great value, we love it when you say, hey, heard your podcast. It was amazing. Thank you so much. Or when you say, hey, share this with somebody who needed to meet with you, connect with you, etc. We love that. It really sort of is that air high five that reminds us that we are doing something that you appreciate and it matters. So thank you. And to the rest of you, we will catch you on the flip side.